Konnichiwa, hajimemashite, Gavin Tomoshimasu, Kanji dekeru, dozo. Hi, I'm Gavin. Nice to meet you. Welcome to Kanji Dekeru. This lesson series is designed to help you learn most, if not all, of the Joyo Kanji to get you ready for the JLPT. The first lesson will serve as a historical introduction to the Japanese writing system, so no characters will be taught in this lesson. However, it is still important that you listen to this lesson. You might also pick up 2 Japanese words if you're smart, which I know you are. There are 3 writing systems in use in modern Japanese. They are hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Hiragana and katakana are collectively called kana. They are what are called syllabaries. They represent sounds by themselves. Individually, most of them have no real meanings. They combine to form words which give meanings. In modern Japanese writing, hiragana have a grammatical function, as they are used to write particles and inflections on verbs, as well as show the pronunciation for native Japanese words. In addition, if you don't know the kanji for a word or part of a word, you can write that part in hiragana and hope the other party understands you, although there are lots of homonyms, so there's a chance there might be some ambiguity. Katakana, however, are used to represent loan words of foreign origin. Words like departo, meaning department store, are written in katakana. You may have noticed that hiragana was more curvy than katakana. Hiragana were originally called onnade, or woman's hand, and were used only by women to write. Men wrote in a combination of katakana and kanji. No, everybody uses all 3 systems. Still, when you're starting out, it's useful to be able to tell whether or not you're looking at hiragana or katakana by the curviness of the character. Kanji are Chinese characters borrowed from Han China. If you really must know, Han Chinese are an ethnic group. For more information, you can Google or go to Wikipedia or whatever. Anyway, these kanji, or Chinese characters, were brought to Japan via the Korean peninsula in about the 4th century AD. Originally, the Japanese used these characters for their phonetic values and not for their pictographic meanings. This gave rise to a writing system called Man-yoga. However, there were linguistic differences between Japanese and Chinese. Chinese is basically an uninflected language in that there are no real conjugations like past tense and such. Japanese, on the other hand, has those conjugations, so issues arose when trying to write Japanese with classical Chinese kanji. The symbol used for their phonetic values were eventually simplified by Buddhist monks, have been told, such as the hiragana character a, deriving from the Chinese character ang, meaning peace. Similar origins can be found for all katakana characters, such as the example you see on screen. There are resources on the internet if you want to find out more about which kana character was derived from what kanji. In some later lessons, I'll probably show you myself. When I find out, that is. Anyway, some symbols, however, were kept for the value of their meanings. There were 2 ways to phonetically represent these types of characters, called onyomi and kunyomi. Yomi means reading. Onyomi was a phonetic approximation to the classical Chinese reading, while kunyomi was the reading in Japanese. Essentially, the reading of a Chinese character in Japanese so Japanese people could understand it. In other words, kunyomi was an explanatory reading. Kunyomi arose because Japanese people already had their own spoken language, so they had their own words for the concepts represented by Chinese characters. They started associating their own words with the Chinese characters. When reading words made up of more than 1 kanji, readings may be combined in 4 possible ways: on, kun, on, and kun. There is no real guideline for seeing how compound words should be read, although beginners are told often that on reading should not be combined, such as in jikan, which means time. Or rather, on reading should be combined, such as in jikan, which means time. This, however, is not strictly true, as there are many exceptions, such as tokidoki, which is read as tokidoki rather than jiji. Most of the times you'll just have to learn them as they come along. After World War II, the Japanese government started a program of language reform to simplify the characters, modify some of their readings, and limit their numbers, quite similar to what Chairman Mao did in China. A bit later, the Joyo Kanji list was published, that is, the list of characters in common use. This contains approximately 1,945 characters that a person will need for almost everyday use. Which brings us to why we're here. If you're taking the JLPT up to the highest level, you're going to need knowledge of most, if not all of these 1,945 characters. Kanji themselves are fun to learn. However, I and many others find them hard to remember. At least they were until I stumbled across this book called Remembering the Kanji by James Heisig, if that's how you pronounce his name. Inside, it gave a method for studying and remembering the kanji by associating small, imaginative little stories with them. I tried it for like 2 months and it worked like a charm. It's a wonderful method and it's going to serve anybody who starts studying Chinese well. Chinese or Japanese, that is, I'm sure of it. The only issue I had with Heisig's book was the fact that the order in which he gave lots of the characters wasn't exactly suited for a person who was studying for the JLPT. I understand that it was because he wanted to build upon knowledge of some characters to show how they'll be used as elements in other more complicated characters. I'm going to modify the order just slightly in this video series. Now, before I wrap up this video, I have a few more things to say. First of all, as I said earlier, kanji have 2 readings, onyomi and kunyomi. Remember what I said about katakana being used for words of foreign origin? Well, since onyomi are of foreign origin, usually they are written in katakana. Kunyomi are written in hiragana. When compound words are made, their readings are always written in hiragana, whether or not the reading of each kanji is kun or onyomi. I'm going to give 1 of 2 example words for each kanji in the subsequent lessons. I'll give the readings in hiragana and romaji, that's romanized Japanese, but that's just for now. You should really make an attempt to learn all of the hiragana and katakana though, because you can do it in like 2 days of studying. Relying on romaji is a really bad habit, and if you get into it from early, it will hinder your progress later on. Next, kanji have this thing called stroke order. When you're in a hurry to write, it really doesn't matter much, but when you're learning, you really should make an effort to learn the stroke order. It allows you to form your characters better and to make them look neater. Finally, kanji are made up of smaller elements called primitives, which can sometimes be other kanji. The smallest of these elements are called radicals. I'll use the words interchangeably, so don't kill yourself over the difference. Different elements may have different purposes. For example, some elements are used to give the kanji some sort of phonetic value, while others are used to impart a certain meaning to the kanji. In addition, depending on their position, some radicals can change their shapes. In the next lesson, I'll cover some radicals. Okay, now I'm going to teach your first character. Yeah, right. No, I lied, I'm just kidding. There is one more thing I need to say. Kanji have a 3rd reading called Nanori. I won't be covering Nanori at all in these lessons, but lots of the time, Nanori can be obtained from on-reading combinations. This isn't necessarily the case though, because some kanji's Nanori readings have basically no relation to their on or kun readings. This will only complicate things, so I won't cover them in this series. But anyway, that's it for the introduction. Stay tuned for the next lesson. Remember to comment, criticisms, praise, advice, whatever, on the blog or in the YouTube comment section. Thanks. Bye.